What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton. This episode kicks off a series of videos to spotlight the Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout Beer Project and social initiative. In this first video, I talk with Marcus Baskerville. He's the head brewer at Weathered Souls Brewing Company in San Antonio, Texas. He created and shared this recipe in hopes of inspiring other pro brewers to brew the beer and donate proceeds to local causes supporting racial and social equality. And the pros have answered that call. At the time of this recording, more than 720 breweries in more than 13 countries have signed up and pledged to brew the beer. In our conversation, Marcus not only tells us about the base beer and some variants that he's brewing at Weathered Souls, along with some other Texas breweries, he talks about how to make this beer at home. He has some tips and suggestions for homebrewers who are bringing this big imperial stout into their own home brewery. We here at Chop and Brew have plans to brew several variations of Black is Beautiful with different original gravities, different volumes. We've got some different takes on the recipe listed at our website, and the link is in the description below. So my plan is for a second video where we show our own brew days with some of the Black is Beautiful brewing, and then a third video, fingers crossed, is that we get together for a virtual tasting with Marcus and maybe some other homebrewers and pro brewers from around the country. Taste not only our versions, but hopefully some of the variants that Weathered Souls putting out. They sound awesome. We're going to hear about that in a second. And share our thoughts on what this project was like. So to get things started, this first video, an interview with the man himself, Marcus Baskerville, on all things Black is Beautiful. One quick note, the audio is a little iffy on Marcus's interview, and I hate that it went down like that, but I think like the Zoom quality that day wasn't super great, but the information and the inspiration level is very high in the interview. So I wanted to put it out regardless. I'll follow back up with you after the interview to kind of bullet point a couple of other points that I learned about brewing this beer for Marcus. Quick shout out to 3 awesome partners who help make Chop and Brew episodes possible. BSGCraft, who by the way is donating Cascade hops to pro brewers brewing Black is Beautiful. More on that later in the video. Imperial Yeast, our big homies over at imperialyeast.com, and all of the awesome Patreon supporters, patreon.com/chopandbrew. Marcus, man, it's good to see you, dude. How you doing?
Doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing good, man. It's a Friday. Not that days mean much anymore. It's like, what's a Friday?
Yeah, exactly. I just had to ask a bartender not too long ago what today was.
Yeah. What is going on, regardless of the day? What's happening in your brewery right now?
So what we're working on today is kind of multitasking Friday. We're brewing a double batch of our West Coast IPA. And then we're also filling up some Willet barrels, some 10-year Elijah Craig barrels, store-pick Elijah Craig barrel, and then some store-pick beers from Brother Barrels.
We wanted to talk about Black is Beautiful. I don't even know what you call it. I keep calling it like a collaborative beer project, but I feel like it's more than that. It's commemorative.
Yeah, I call it an initiative. But yeah, so Black is Beautiful is a collaborative effort that has gone worldwide at this point. Basically, it's a call to all breweries to participate in a collaboration beer of a 10% Imperial Stout that I ended up producing here at Weathered Souls. From there, you can download the logo, download the label, brewery brews the beer, and then 100% of those proceeds go to a local organization, entity, foundation that supports police brutality reform, legal fees, and equality.
As of the shooting of this interview, how many breweries are on board?
We are almost to 600.
Man, that's amazing. How does that make you feel?
Great. It's a very humbling experience. But what it shows me is that the brewing industry is amazing.
Is the beer itself something that you normally brew, or is this kind of a new thing for you?
So we're known for stouts, so that's typically something that we brew often. But this particular base is a brand new base that we haven't done before. So we just did our first batches last Friday, and then again this Monday. The stout that I created basically leaves some openness for creativity.
Yeah.
It's depending on how long you boil, should produce a nice body, full body stout, 10% ABV, so it's gonna be well balanced with the body. But basically, with the amount of chocolate malt, dark malts used, and caramel or caramel malts is basically going to produce, a chocolatey fudge like with a very remnants of caramel on the back end. But then it's not anything that's overly abrasive, so it works well when you want to go ahead and add adjuncts and different ingredients. We're going to do our releases 4th of July. We're going to have the base beer in itself. We're doing a collaboration with our homies at Easel Street. That's going to be pecans, caramel, and chocolate sugar cookies. And then I'm going to do one more variation that's probably going to be Rwandan coffee and hazelnut.
So there's a pro kind of recipe on the website. There's also a homebrew recipe on the website. We've also kind of mocked up our own to share with people. At one that kind of starts at OG 1095 like yours. One that's more like 1072 in case people don't have the capacity. Not that that's anything to like sneeze at either. But for homebrewers that want to get involved and take part in this and they check out these recipes, just as your experience as a homebrewer coming from homebrew roots, do you have any suggestions on the process, technique for brewing and fermenting this, and then what kind of like maybe even wackier things you would try?
For homebrewers, I'm going to say if you want the body and if you want the gravity that you want to use for this particular beer, I would probably try double mashing, being so that you're going to max out, especially if you're doing a 5-gallon, more than likely max out your capacity. So I think to be able to go ahead and get the character that you want in a full body stout on a homebrew level, you kind of need to go ahead with the double mash method. So, mash in, and then from there, go ahead and do another mash in, once you boil for a couple of hours. So typically doing with our stouts, we do anywhere from 3 to 6 hour boil. If it's going into barrels, it's minimum 6, and sometimes even goes higher than that. So being said that, you're going to lose too much work boiling that much on that type of scale. So to go ahead and compensate, I would probably say double mashing would probably be one of the biggest things to go ahead and do, so you can achieve that body that you want, compared to what some of the commercial beers that are about to release. As far as ingredients go, I'm a huge fan of coffee, a huge fan of vanilla, huge fan of cacao nibs, different little things along those lines. And if you can get a hold of a little 5-gallon barrel or something like that, that'd probably be even better.
The one that I do, I'm going to do a 3-gallon of the 1095. Excuse me. So to not have to deal kind of with that volume and capacity, I think I'm going to go toasted coconut, which I've never done in a beer, but this sounds like...
No, coconut is amazing. We do coconut really well here. That's one of my favorite ingredients to actually play with. How do you use it so often? We use it so often, I chose not to use it in this one.
Is it sweetened, unsweetened, toast, untoasted? Like, what do you find kind of hits that right spot?
So I use a conjunction. I'm into the whole process of layering ingredients. So, because we don't use extract here. So certain ingredients give off certain flavors, and then, the latter. So for instance, for our coconut beers, we use toasted coconut. Toasted coconut provides that sweet aroma, then that sweet palate. But then what we also use is basically a coconut powder. And then the coconut powder goes ahead and gives that round coconut flavor that you want in the physical beer in itself, that doesn't give you that artificial suntan lotion taste. So we've been about layering ingredients. Even with vanilla, we use 2 different types of vanilla. One gives more of a bolder of that vanilla aroma, and then the other one gives more of that sweeter palate. So it just kind of depends. Even when it comes to chocolate, I tend to use nibs, just because I like the actual chocolate character. But then sometimes we'll round it off with some dark chocolate to give it a little more robust character to it.
Just as far as like the worldwide nature of this project and kind of the response, we don't get into politics a lot in beer, and people even say it doesn't belong there, which we're not going to get into that right now. But, what is beer's kind of power to unify? What's beer's power that you're seeing?
And it's crazy because you look at this, right? We have almost 600 breweries involved. Resilience had a ton of breweries involved. You had almost 900 breweries involved for the Altogether initiative. So dealing with this whole thing, it basically has shown me that we have the most progressive, inclusive industry in the entire world. I mean, you look at, there's no other industry doing what we're doing right now, as far as everybody joining together on this particular initiative, fighting for equality, fighting for injustice, and, you know, putting their best foot forward. We had so many breweries reach out to us and support homebrewers, different little things like that. And you don't see that in any other industry. So, I mean, that attests to a lot and says a lot about the overall nature of what craft beer is. I mean, we've even had larger breweries reaching out. So 10 Barrel, Golden Road, Goose Island, Founders. Um, so, you know, dealing with that, it says that this is obviously, you know, bigger than beer in itself. And people in, I guess I can't even just say craft beer now since I named all the big beers, but just people in beer in general are showing out for this initiative, and it's been great.
Regardless of what layer you're looking at, it's been troublesome and traumatic last 3 or 4 months. And I agree, it's cool to see these projects kind of take the steam. So Black is Beautiful, blackisbeautiful.beer for info, whether you're a pro brewer or you're a home brewer and you want the labels, you want the information, you want the recipes. We'll also put the recipes down below. But Marcus, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. I hope we can check back in with you after your beers are available. Maybe we could get a little care package sent up here and we'll do like a virtual tasting notes.
Yeah, we'll send you a couple of the variants when they're released. You can send me the homebrew when yours is ready, and we'll hop back on and share some beers.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, dude.
Appreciate you, sir. You have a great day. Let me get back to work.
All right, man. Holla.
Yes, sir.
Back here on the porch on a very hot and humid day in Midway St. Paul, Minnesota. I feel like I'm in San Antonio, Texas, to be honest with you, man. I want to follow up because I know the audio was kind of hit or miss a little bit in some of that. So I kind of wanted to repeat a little bit of what Marcus said, but also Annie Johnson and her fellow clubmates in the North Seattle homebrewers had kind of like a Zoom Q&A with Marcus that they gave me the audio for to listen to. And I pulled a couple of other hints and tips for homebrewers that I want to share. So first and foremost, if you missed it, he's making the base beer at Weathered Souls, but then he's going to do a variant that has Rwandan coffee and hazelnut. Then he's doing another one that's going to be aged or conditioned in 12-year Willet bourbon barrels that he got from Midwest Barrels. Shout out Midwest Barrels and Willet. And then he's making like a bumped up ABV, which you're like, what's bumped up from 10%? Lord knows. A bumped up ABV, kind of a pastry stout with Isla Street Brewing with pecans, caramel, and then a local baker actually made sugar cookies in kind of the shape of the puzzle pieces of the Black is Beautiful graphic and logo. So he's putting some cookies in the mash. Big old pastry stout. So if you're in San Antonio, Central and South Central Texas, you want to hit them up at Weathered Souls. Hopefully we're going to get some of those sent to us too. Yummy yum. So some other tips for homebrewers. Real quick, I want to run down kind of what he said in this interview, but also what he reiterated when talking to Annie Johnson's North Seattle Homebrewers Club. We're looking for a higher mash temp, maybe 154 to 155. That's to make sure that we get some body and some sweetness, some sugars in there. We're going to shoot for a longer boil, he says, even if it means ending up with less volume. Marcus says that he knows a lot of people claim that viscosity and body come from mash. He is a strong believer in the idea that body and richness actually comes very much from prolonged boils with the caramelization, the melanoidin creation. So he says like as high as 3 hours or as long as 3 hours. So some of the recipes that we drew up for 1079 and 1095 OG, they only take into account an hour boil. So we might need to shapeshift that because we did those recipes before we found out. Obviously, if you start at 1095 and boil for 3 hours, you're going to have way bigger beer. So, but just be cognizant of that. I think I'm going to do my batch. I'm going to aim for it to be 1095 after 3 hours of boiling. So I might be doing more like a 1072, 1080, kind of hard to tell. Another tip, adding maltodextrin or corn sugar towards the end of the boil. It says the recipe is built in a way to allow it to be pretty dry. And this sugar will also help that happen, but it could also help bump up gravity depending. So you don't want to do a 3-hour boil. You just want to do one, but you want to amp it up and have a decent volume. And lastly, just interesting flavors. He says this beer is just going to be a playground for flavors like coffee, vanilla, chocolate, think dark fruits and berries, maybe nuts, chili peppers. He says nuts always leave some residual oil, which can mess with head retention. So if you're going to go with nuts of any sort, you might want to add oats or carapils to the mash in order to kind of help retain the head retention. Also, as far as nuts goes, he suggests roasted macadamia nuts because they almost add like this cinnamon type flavor. He says macadamia nuts are awesome with vanilla and coffee. So this dude is just like full of good ideas. Marcus actually suggested something called double mashing or reiterated mashing, which I'd never heard of, and I went down a rabbit hole. There's a Chris Colby article I'll link below as well. It's mind-blowing. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I'm man enough to do it for this beer, but I want to find a reason to do it. Basically, you mash a beer. Say you get like a 1055 beer wort, and then you use that wort to be the mash water, the mash liquor, for a second mash, yo. So now you've got sugar water going in to be your mash water. It just sounds crazy. So we might have to put that off for another episode where I can wrap my head around it or find somebody that actually has like a better system. We hope you are inspired, pro brewers. If you want to brew this and get on board, one thing to be aware of is our homies at BSGCraft and BSG Handcraft are offering free Cascades, 2019 crop Cascades. Just hit them up. I'll try to get like a contact and put it below, or just go on social. They've been talking this up a little bit. Homebrewers, Michael Dawson drew up a couple of different versions of this recipe at 1072 OG and 1095, and 3 and 5 gallon of both. So we really just want to facilitate people brewing this beer, no matter what scale, no matter what your limitations are with brew capacity, or how much 10% beer you think you really want around. The answer is a lot, always. So yeah, check out the recipes below. We're going to put those in the link, or at chopandbrew.com. We really hope people get on board with this project. If you're a pro brewer, go sign up and be counted. If you're a home brewer, hit us up. Hashtag Black is Beautiful Beer. Let Weathered Souls and Marcus and the world know that you're brewing this beer. And tell us your thoughts. Tell us what kind of fun stuff you're going to do with this beer. Someone making a session, Black is Beautiful? I would love to hear your process. You know, you might even consider just boiling the first runnings instead of doing like a big long boil. Just do first runnings and maybe get a second beer. All that to say, run wild with creativity, run wild with support, find peace, find support, solidarity, chop for chop, brew for brew. Say his name. George Floyd. Big Floyd. The screwed up clique. H-Town. From H-Town to MSP, y'all.